This episode is proudly supported by East Coast Beverages.
So my name's Samuel James Lentini. Really what's special about East Coast Beverages and about what we do is that we are vertically integrated. We grow, we squeeze, we bottle, we blend everything here on site. And not only that, I think what is really special is that all of the bars and restaurants and hospitality venues, they're able to come and visit our site. And once they come to our site, they see what our process is and they can actually see that the lemons, limes and oranges are all getting squeezed here, where we're not using a concentrate that comes from overseas. What is really special is that we invite people to come here. We have events here, and we're a family business, and we're able to really just work off the foundations that my grandfather built many years ago and continue a quality product range.
For more information, go to eastcoastbeverages.com.au.
We're not going to be for everybody, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? As a restaurant, like you can't aim to please everybody. It's probably not really that realistic, and it kind of dampens what you're going to do as well, or what you want to do.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Having creative freedom on a project can help you refine your voice on a plate, but what happens when that journey is over? How do you find a new platform to do what you love? Matt Blackwell is a chef currently in Brisbane. Matt, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to get you on the show. You've done a lot of exciting things, particularly up there in Brisbane. But how are things at the moment?
Yeah, good. Things have changed a little bit over the last 6 months or so. But yeah, good. Things are starting to settle down a little bit. Obviously, had the restaurant for just under 2 years, Pneuma. That obviously didn't work out as happened earlier in the year, but things are on the outward side now. Started working again, helping a few mates out in Brisbane and just kind of taking it as it goes for now.
Pneuma had quite an impact on the Brisbane dining scene. Tell us a little bit about sort of the end of that and, what it was like for you. Yeah,
I mean, Pneuma was my first restaurant for me as being an owner. So first time out as an actual chef owner. It went awesome. Like when we first opened, it was received really well. And it still was at the end as well. It was outside forces really, just behind the scenes that kind of made me realise there was only going to be one outcome. And unfortunately that was for me to step away. And hence the restaurant closed because it was based around me. Although there was another business partner, I was in full control, and it was me and a small team. But yeah, it wasn't a decision that I came to lightly, and it wasn't particularly what I wanted, obviously, but it was what needed to happen. And I feel like I'm on the outside of that now, the back end of that, which is good.
It was an amazing canvas for you to show your real creative flair, which you did over the 2 years that it was open. What was it like being sort of owner-operator for the first time and having that creative license for your food?
Yeah, it was amazing. Obviously, with the challenge comes with the challenges that any business has and a small business owner. But I think away from just cooking and just running the restaurant, what I learned as a business owner and things behind the doors, all the things that you don't really necessarily see as a chef until you become the business owner. That was awesome to learn all that, do all that. Yeah, to get that under my belt was amazing. But yeah, having the full freedom, the full control, like of everything, the music, the playlist, the setup of the restaurant, the artwork, and everything like that was really cool.
Tell us a little bit about the restaurant and maybe a dish or two that you had on the menu that really sort of spoke of what you were doing there.
Yeah, so I mean, we changed the format a few times, but we kind of settled on it was on a nighttime. It was tasting menu only, had like a short and an extended menu, so kind of a quicker and a more full experience. And I think people received it really well. Like once we changed that format, I think people knew they were happy to just let us cook and let us just guide them through it rather than it being a la carte and having a choice and kind of that more structured service. It was a bit more free flow, which us as a team, especially in the kitchen and the front of house, it just gave us a lot more freedom to be creative with how we did it. some of the dishes that, I mean, the smoked eel, that was on from the beginning. I couldn't change that. Like, took it off a few times, but people would be wanting that one, so that was there for a bit. But yeah, I think it was really well received, which was nice. Like, we had a lot of there was a lot of regulars that I kind of built at Goma that kind of came over as well. But then I think we reached another kind of demographic as well, which was pretty cool.
You mentioned that you're helping a few mates out in Brisbane at the moment. What's that like for you, just sort of taking the pedal off and just sort of recalibrating and working out what you want to do next? Is it a good period of time for you now?
Yeah, like, it takes some adjusting. So obviously you kind of you use a certain thing, but I think it is good. I think it helps. It's good for me to take a bit of a step back. It also helps me grow a little bit because I'm back into a different team, seeing different food, doing different things. That it's not the same thing, if that makes sense. It's not the same structure that I've put in place. It's somebody else's structure. It's somebody else's kitchen, which I think is good every now and then, even if not forced, if it's your choice just to do that. Like, kind of like stars in the kitchen, you're putting yourself out there into somebody else's structure. And I think you can learn a lot from it, and you learn to be fluid. But I think for me, it's good now because it's just kind of taking that pressure off, where I can actually decide what's next and kind of look at it from the outside.
Throughout the press, there was mentions about you heading back to Melbourne. Is that a plan for you? What's sort of happening with you over the next year?
Yeah, so that's definitely happening now. So when we were closing Pneuma, and me and my partner, we were talking like, what do we do? Because when we first moved over, we spent the first year and a half in Melbourne. So we've got quite a few mates, a bit of a network there, and so I think we'll slip back in. So we were planning to move back there early next year after Christmas. So which is why, like, for the next 4 or 5 months, I'm kind of just like working around and there's not really enough time to take another role on. So I think it's kind of nice for me to just enjoy the rest of the year and beginning of next year in Brisbane, and then make a fresh start in Melbourne.
Yeah, I'm keen to sort of explore what might happen when you get back to Melbourne down the track a little bit. But let's go back to when you were young. Whereabouts did you grow up, and was food sort of really important to you and your family growing up?
Yeah, so I was born in York, which is the north of England. Spent most of my youth between York and Leeds. I mean, growing up, food, it was important, but we were definitely working lower class, so we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So it was a lot more home comfort style food. Like, I remember my grandparents, like, around there on a Sunday, old stew and dumplings, Yorkshire puddings, that kind of thing. Like, just pretty hearty, honest food. But I've been told by my parents that even from then I had an interest in food. Like, obviously super early on, before I can even remember a lot of it, but I was always interested in food, and I was in the kitchen with my grandma, like, how's that made? Like, making meringues and letting it set overnight and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
Tell us about your first steps in the industry. When did you think that might be an avenue for you, and what were your first steps?
Kind of fell into it, to be honest. Like, my mum used to work at a local hotel as a receptionist, and while I was at school, just for extra money, I ended up working in the kitchen, doing dishes, and that was when I was like maybe 12, 13, so pretty young. Did that through school, and then left school, went to college, did my A-levels, and actually planned to go to university. I didn't really want to. It was just that kind of thing you did, do you know what I mean? So he's like, go to university, do this, do that. Because that's my brother. My brother did that same route. He went to university, so I kind of just thought that was what he did. And then when I'd done my A-levels, I was like, I don't really know why I'm doing this, going to university. So I actually just said to the hotel I was working at, look, can I just train to my apprenticeship to be a chef? And that was it from there, really. Just started that when I was maybe 18, 19. And then, yeah, just ever since then. So I've been cooking since late teens, really.
In those early years, what were the really sort of important venues and people that helped you sort of find your feet in the industry?
I mean, that first hotel, and it was in Heworth in York, a small little suburb. But I think that's where I learned first, like, just working long hours, working hard, and just the basics, like the groundwork of working in the kitchen. And then from there, I moved to a restaurant called the Blue Bicycle, which was in New York. I was there for a few years, and then from that, I actually did my working holiday in Sydney. That was in 2010. I was mainly at Opera Bar, just at the Sydney Opera House, and then doing a few stages at Aria and Benelong. Did that for the year, went back to the UK, kind of worked around a bit, moved to New Zealand. I think New Zealand is where I first started working in really good restaurants. I worked at the Grove under Ben Bailey, and then did a big stint at Siddharth with Sid Sarath, and that's when we got the 3 hats. When I was there, so that's when I realised that I wanted to work in good kitchens.
Take us back into that kitchen. Do you have any stories of that time and what it was like for you?
Not so much stories, but you just remember the hard work. Like it was a small team. There was only four chefs, including Sid. So Sid, me, and 2. And it was just big, long days, 18, 19-hour days. But we were all there for the same thing. Do you know what I mean? We were all there just to kind of push on, and we knew what standard Sid wanted. And I think that's when I first felt it, where everyone's on the same boat and everyone's pushing the same direction and what you can actually achieve.
What was Sid like to work with?
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it was really good. We actually, once I left and then moved on and stuff, we actually became even better friends, and we still chat all the time. And well, not all the time, but every now and then now. He's a really good guy. Yeah, really good friend.
What was the lure for going to New Zealand sort of in the first place, and were you surprised by it when you got there?
I think it was just after we did our working holiday visa in Australia the first time. I went back to the UK. We just felt that we weren't ready to stay there, and it was me that suggested I was going to go to New Zealand. Like, I've always kind of been quite interested and fascinated about it as a country. And then when we got there, I fell in love with it. Like, yeah, I loved New Zealand. It was amazing. Like, I think because I was working in good places and I kind of felt a real click there, but also the country as a whole. Like, yeah, I really loved it.
How much did you change during your time in New Zealand?
Probably, I mean, looking back on it, probably quite a lot, but probably more so in a career-wise, because I think I realised then what direction I actually wanted to like go in and push in. And I think once you realise that, you can kind of hone in a bit more, rather than, I think sometimes when you kind of just not cruising, but you know what I mean, you just work in a restaurant, it's cool, well, I'm going to work here because it's good. But I think once you feel that click and you feel like really settled in a team, I think that's when it changed for me.
Tell us about the move to Australia. How did that come about, and where did you sort of get your foot in the door here on that second time?
So after New Zealand, went back to the UK for a couple of years, and that's where I actually worked at the Man Behind the Curtain with Michael O'Hare. He was a good friend already. We'd kind of knew each other a bit before, and then when I got back, he hit me up, and I worked there for 2 years, which is when we got the Michelin star as well. And I think, again, that just reinforced what I'd kind of realised in New Zealand, working at that level. And then we kind of decided pretty early on when we got back to the UK that we wanted to actually emigrate to Australia. So we started our permanent residency process, I think 2014 or 2015, when we just got back. And that took quite a while. It took like 18 months to actually do. So the whole time I was working at Man Behind the Curtain, we were actually applying for our PR and doing that kind of process then, which was good because it meant when we got here, we moved to Melbourne first, we had the freedom to kind of move where we wanted, and we didn't have to get sponsorship or anything like that, which was a big point as well. We kind of wanted that freedom. And then as soon as I landed in Melbourne, I started working for Peter Gunn at Ides, just in Collingwood, and was there for a while, left, and then went back later on. But I spent most of the year working there, which was awesome. Like Pete's a good guy as well. Again, he's a good mate now. We stayed pretty close, which is, yeah, when we had Pneuma, we did he invited us for a pop-up. We did a takeover of Ides, which was really cool.
He's a highly creative chef, not unlike yourself, and from New Zealand as well. We've had him on the show. What did you take from your time with Peter?
It was interesting at first because it didn't click because I think I left the man behind the curtain, and when I left, it was kind of just blowing up, and it was all getting lots of focus. And then coming to Australia, going into Peter's kitchen was really different, almost like starting again. And it was quite like jarring for me to be like, but it was good because it kind of helped build me as well as a chef and a person, I think. But but yeah, like I love the way that Pete kind of works the kitchen, like the creativity of it. Like because when I first started, it had only been open I think a couple of months, so it was still very early days of Ides, and I think it not found the groove of how we wanted it yet. So it was cool to be part of that process and just see it evolve.
Tell us about your time in Australia. What's been the sort of really big stepping stones and venues for you during your time here?
I think working at Ides with Pete and just the relationship with Pete is definitely one of them. And I think when the venue where I probably actually started to take a bit more control and direction was at Goma, mainly because I guess eventually I got given full autonomy of the restaurant, which took a while because I mean Goma's it's a pretty different kind of base because it's a restaurant inside a government building and it's like government run, so it's not got the normal goals as a independent restaurant, I guess. Which was interesting and sometimes difficult, but that was the way it was. But eventually, when they kind of went, all right, cool, you can kind of take the restaurant and run with it in your direction. That's probably when it kind of my style of food and cooking kind of clicked, and I was like, cool, all right, this is how we actually go, put it all together, and do you know what I mean? Get it on how onto the tables and how everything's the bigger picture, not just the food.
Tell us about that period of time. What was the move like to Brisbane for you, and how did that Goma role come about?
Well, we ended up moving up to Brisbane just for a change, really, because like Melbourne was cool for the first 18 months, 2 years, but it kind of just felt like living in London for us, and we kind of didn't go to Australia for that. So we're like, we've never lived in Brisbane. Let's try a different state, a different city. So we moved up just to see, really. And then when I first moved here, I had a few roles, just kind of getting settled in. And then it was one of my friends, who was actually Kiwi, Michael Pickford. He worked at Ides as well, briefly. He moved to Brisbane, and his friend, Doug, was the exec chef at Goma. And at that point, they didn't have a chef basically in the restaurant, so me and Mike went there together. Mike was there for about a year or so and then moved on. And then when he moved on, that's kind of when it streamlined as just me running the restaurant.
You sort of detailed the difference sort of in running a restaurant in a government building and your own. But talk about that in a creative sense. When did you sort of really start to feel like it was your food on the plate, and was that limited a bit with the audience there at Goma?
Sometimes, yeah, definitely. I think because, which I saw it while I was there, but I saw it more when I'd left. Goma as a whole, they had like different kind of goals for the restaurant, or different what they wanted it to do as a restaurant. And it was more of a service. Do you know what I mean? It was there just to serve everybody, not specific people that were looking for a certain type of dining experience. So that was difficult sometimes to navigate that, and I'd have to be mindful all the time of certain dishes and certain things that you couldn't just kind of run away with it, if that makes sense. You had to still cook to a certain boundary or whatever. But it was a learning process. Like, it was good because I learned a lot of things like cooking for events, cooking for big groups, like 200, 300, which you don't really normally do in a normal independent restaurant anyway. So it was good. I still learn a lot.
When you got the chance to do your own restaurant with Pneuma, tell us about that creative process then. You sort of let off the leash a little bit, but was there still some boundaries with customers and things like that with the creativity? There always is, because you still got to be mindful. You still are
people are still wanting to have dinner or lunch or whatever. So you've got to be aware of that still. But I think we were lucky in a way. But I think most of our guests were really happy to just kind of let us do what we do, really, and they weren't too worried about, oh, this is going to be weird or whatever. Do you know what I mean? They were, which was great. Like getting, especially in the city, getting that kind of real mixed group of guests. It was really cool, and a lot of, I think most people had been and they kind of enjoyed it. There was a lot of repeat guests, which was nice because it showed that we were doing the right, or doing something good or something right. Do you know what I mean? To get people to come back.
You're renowned for really creative food, but tell us about your creative process. Where does a dish start and end for you? Is there a dish that you can take us through and your creative process?
I mean, it's different, I guess. For me, it's every day. Like you kind of, that creative process just happens naturally. It's very rare that I would sit down and right, I need to do a dish, or I need to do this. And I think when I do try, it doesn't work, or it doesn't work as well. If you try and like force things, you know what I mean? Like you're like, oh shit, we need to change this. This dish has been on for ages. And sometimes I felt that pressure. Like at Pneuma, we'd have dishes that had been on for a while, and I'd be like, oh, man, we need to change this. It's been too long. And that process, for me anyway, never really worked. It would just happen randomly, like whether it's music, movies. Like I'm really into music and movies and arts and that kind of stuff, and even eating out at another restaurant and you'd eat a certain thing and certain songs playing. I mean, not to be like, do you know what I mean, cliche about it, but it just happens, and then you try that, might work or that, and then it kind of just rolls from there, I think.
You mentioned that you'll be off to Melbourne next year. What are the plans that you have once you sort of find your feet?
Yeah, nothing solid at the moment. I was chatting to Pete the other day because he was asking the same question. He was like, what are you going to do? What's the plan? But I think in my head, I think I'll probably get a role for whatever, a certain amount of time, maybe a year or so, and just get my feet back into Melbourne and just kind of, because it's changed a lot. I mean, when I was there, it was 7 years ago, and COVID's obviously changed the city. But I do feel like there's some unfinished business, so I do plan to open my own venue again in Melbourne, but not in any rush. I'm going to kind of have a bit of time there, gauge it, and see what the city's like, and see how we settle, where we want to settle, and go from there, really.
After your experience of owning a business for a couple of years, are there some lessons learnt on sort of what you'll do next? Like, is there already things that have shaped the way that might end up? Yeah,
good question. I think like what I learned from Pneuma, and I wouldn't change it. Like, even though this wasn't the outcome that I wanted, I think I've learned some pretty valuable life lessons, and even away from the business and just people, I think I've learned a lot. And that's probably what I'll take into it more. Whatever I do next is just be. I think when we opened Pneuma, my business partner, I was obviously super excited and almost like just ran into it and was just wanting to get going and stuff, and almost a little bit naive. And I think that's obviously what I've learned next time, is just to maybe take a step back, have a look at the bigger picture, and just not be so like eager, I think, to get going.
You're very bold with your first restaurant, and very good at representing your creativity. What sort of advice would you have for someone young out there that might be looking to open their own restaurant and sort of show themselves on a plate?
Yeah, good question. I think it's like cliche again, but like just be true to what you want to do and like how you see it. Try not to let any other influences, or because there will be people have an opinion, whoever it is, whatever it is, people will have something to say. And I think just being strong-minded about what you want to do. And sometimes it'll feel wrong, or feel like it's going wrong, which we had, like the playlist and stuff for the music. Like I just add to it, like every day, every couple of days. Some people, I mean, pretty much most people were into it, but the odd person was like, oh, the music's a bit different or whatever, and it makes you question sometimes you got to just kind of push through that and be like, we're not going to be for everybody, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? As a restaurant, like you can't aim to please everybody. Like, I mean, for me anyway, personally, I think that's when I first opened Pneuma, that's kind of what you have in your head you should do. But then you realize pretty quickly that it's probably not really that like realistic, and it kind of dampens what you're going to do as well, or what you want to do.
Well, I'm very excited to see what unfolds in Melbourne and what you end up opening up. But what do you love about what you do?
I think it's just the people, and like just meeting different people all the time. Like when it's teams, like customers, guests, just it's never boring. Like you're always every day is different. It might feel sometimes it is like structurally boring because you're doing the same thing sometimes every day, but there's always something different. Always going to be a different person, or someone's got a different story, or it's just I just couldn't see myself doing anything different because of that. Like it's just you're almost excited to go to work because you know something's going to be different that day.
Well, Matt, very much looking forward to seeing what happens from here, and an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, mate. Thank you.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Stay safe and be well.